Mimi is a successful entrepreneur and mother. She is a co-founder of Intelligent Change, the 5-minute journal that's now sold over 2 million copies, and the Intelligent Change Summit. And she's an all-around amazing human being and an inspirational figure.
If you believe you can't, you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to have the relationship or start the business or have that career path that you aspire to have. Because ultimately, it's not that people who are more talented or better than us that get to live their dream lives. It's people who believe that they can. There was a friend of mine, I guess she was challenged by the fact that I was dreaming so big, and she felt this shift in my energy, and I think she was projecting her own reality, but I really didn't like that because it didn't make me feel good. And because I was so in tune with myself, I literally had to break up with my friend.
How do you do that gracefully? Mimi?
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for asking me to be on your podcast.
Thank you for coming. And I really say this from the bottom of my heart. You are such an inspirational person to me. I relish in every time that I see you, every time I see you online, doing your literally everyday life is just oozing positivity. So I'm really, really happy to do this today.
So sweet. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I wanted to introduce you also to the audience, in case somebody doesn't know who you are. So Mimi is a successful entrepreneur and mother. She is a co-founder of Intelligent Change, the 5-minute journal that's now sold over 2 million copies, and the Intelligent Change Summit. And she's an all-around amazing human being and an inspirational figure. So thank you, Mimi. You really lead by example, and you radiate that warm positivity that just draws people and good things into your life. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I feel showered with love. Thank you so much.
Well, that's what they say, right? You get back what you give. So
absolutely. I believe in that too.
That's coming from you. So I want to talk about today something that everybody is interested in. So everyone wants to live a happy life, beautiful life, realize their dreams, realize their vision. And you seem to be a person that really, has it all. You have a beautiful business, you have a beautiful family, you have a community, you have friends, you have, the freedom, the time, the health, and all of these things. So what do you think are some necessary prerequisites for someone to be able to turn their dreams into reality?
Okay, that's such a big question. We're starting really, really deep already. So what are some things we can do to make our dreams a reality? Yeah. Well, first of all, you need to sit with yourself and reflect on where it is that you're going. Like, where do you even want to go? Because I feel like most people don't make the time. We have all this conditioning from the environment, our childhood, our parents, teachers, grandparents, the whole community of our people around us, who put all these ideas, or even the social media nowadays, right? Because even 20 years ago, we were not exposed to so many messages. Yes, there was television, which was always on, but there wasn't so much variety as it is now on all these social media platforms. So oftentimes as you're consuming all of this information and you're getting all these messages, you kind of get lost in terms of what is actually authentic to you. Because I remember hearing this quote, it's like, you can have everything. You can have anything, but you cannot have everything, right? And from the first time of hearing that, you might say, well, isn't that the same thing? No, you got to be specific, right? There's an abundance of opportunities, people, and things we can do and experience, but you don't need to. Your soul, your journey is not about experiencing all of them, right? So what is it that really aligns with your values and vision of where you're going? And again, these are very big questions to ask. And I think oftentimes we can feel overwhelmed. And you don't need to figure it all out in one go, right? I always tell people to split it into different exercises that you can do it over the weekend. So spend one weekend and align, really sit with yourself and really hone down on 10 values, your personal values. And obviously, if you have a business, your personal values trickle down into the business as well, because a business is only a reflection of who you are as a human being. And really narrow down 10 things that you live by. What are these 10 values that you live by? And not necessarily live by right now, but at least you aspire or have the intention to live by. And then the second thing is the vision. I think the vision is really huge. It's the most important thing ever. And again, many people, you said like, how can we make dreams come true? Many people are even afraid to have dreams, right? They're afraid because what if I fail and I don't get there? But the truth is, you know, on the journey of getting to your dreams, you might discover that actually that is not your dream. And who cares? You're going to learn so much. But a dream or a vision, it's like a North Star. It allows you to have a clear path or direction, at least towards somewhere. Otherwise, we're just aimlessly in this vicious cycle of doing the same thing and living out our conditioning and sometimes really negative subconscious habit patterns that have been conditioned to us, again, by the parents and, you know, whoever we were raised by, basically. So how do we make our dreams come true? So identify your values, identify the vision, and it doesn't have to be, again, set in stone. As you go on your journey, you might change your mind because things don't resonate. Or you know, let's say you want to be a fashion stylist. That was one of my dreams. In my early 20s, I ended up working with my favorite fashion stylist. I used to live in Toronto at that point. And I remember very quickly, like first year, I realized that's not for me. And the stylist that I work with, Anya Shore, I love her. She was so straight up. She's like, Mimi, in 10 years, you're going to be doing the exact same thing. Do you really want to do this? And I was like, oh, but this is my dream. I really wanted to do this. But you know what? It was great that I tried because trying it made me realize, actually, no, I don't want to be here in 10 years doing this. And I changed course. So also your vision is flexible, but you still need to have that kind of a guide, like some imagination. You have to turn it on and think about things that excite you about life, that make you feel alive. Because I think that's the stuff that people sometimes are confused about. They're like, well, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'm overwhelmed. Especially people coming out of school. Like, there's so many things and opportunities we can try. The world is our oyster, but also, yes, it can be overwhelming. So, like, which path do we take? Ask yourself, what excites you? What would you do if money was not an issue? And then follow that path. Because you'll figure out how to make money.
Yeah.
But if you do something that, yeah, maybe brings you a lot of financial freedom, but doesn't make you feel alive, what's the freaking point, honestly? You're here to live, right? So
amen.
That's the starting point. Yeah, and then take it from there. You'll discover so much. That's what I love about life. You think you know it, and then just when you think you know it, life
throws something at you, and then you're like, well, I gotta learn again.
It brings a whole new level of awareness.
Which makes it exciting, right?
Like you're unpeeling these layers of yourself, and that's the most beautiful thing, because you get to rediscover yourself every few years. You're a new you. I mean, I think it takes 1 year to completely change our skin. How crazy is that? Like physically we change. So obviously it's great to know that all of us gets to always evolve and change as well.
I love, there's so many things that I wanted to add and delve
Please
deeper
do.
in. But, you know, you said some extremely important things that everyone should take a note of is, one is know thyself. I mean, nothing new, 2,000 years, you know, who was it, Aristotle that was telling us this? Probably not. Don't quote me on this, please. But yes, so first of all, you need to know who you are, what you stand for, what you like, what you dislike. And then you also need to know what you really want. And those are extremely hard things to find out and unpeel with time. And in fact, it is a process and it is a journey. You won't just have an answer. And I think a part of the problem is that we're conditioned to believe that there is like a completely ready answer. But from what you've said, and as from what I've seen with working with clients, with just living through my life and speaking to friends, is that it's an evolving journey, right? People think that there's just this answer that they can figure out in their head. Whereas in reality, it's more like these hunches, these inklings that you can choose to follow and then explore. And then by doing that thing, for example, for you was the fashion, you felt an inkling, you felt a pull. And so you went that way, you explored it, and then you're like—
it was a great experience. Yeah,
no regrets,
wouldn't take any of it back. Absolutely.
100%. You learned something new. And after doing that, you kind of opened that box, and then the next steps revealed themselves to you, right? So there's this saying that I really love, which is you only need to know the direction and you need to see just one step ahead. Any given time, that is all you need. The direction and one step ahead. Once you take that step, the next step will be revealed. The next step
I
will
love
be
that.
revealed.
Yeah.
So I think that takes a lot of pressure off of all of us. And yeah, it just makes it more easy to go ahead. I also want to ask you, we've spoken about two things that, of course, are really good prerequisites to start with. So understanding yourself, understanding the vision, which speaking actually about the vision, another thing that I remembered is, so whilst I was doing the vision board workshops, one of the hardest things for people was actually connecting to their desire, their true desire. And it's a really, really good exercise, the vision board creation, because literally the number one task that you have to do there is you need to let go of all the conditioning and all the messaging of
Exactly.
what if I can't, how could I ever, how will I do this, all of that,
Doesn't matter.
push it aside. What would you really want? If nothing, there was no limitation, you could have anything, you could do anything, you could be anything. What would you want? And that in and of itself is such a powerful and healing exercise and a place to be where you can reconciliate and you can connect and you can pull out those deepest desires. That's already a very strong compass to start with. So you're absolutely spot on. Knowing of the self and knowing of your desires, great place to start. What about, I always wonder about the cost of things. Everything has an opportunity cost, right? But in this specific case, what I'd like for you to tell me is, what do you think are the costs and things that you need to leave behind in order to go towards your dream life?
Definitely limiting beliefs. Right? I think that's the starting point, because ultimately, I remember reading this quote years ago when I used to work at a bank. This coworker in her office had this poster that said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And I remember looking at it and thinking, that doesn't make sense. And I just kept reading it. And then by the time I was quitting the bank, I was like, I totally know what that means. And I know I can, you know? So ultimately, it's what you believe is the truth. If you believe you can't, you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to have the relationship or start the business or have that career path that you aspire to have. Because ultimately, it's not that people who are more talented or better than us that get to live their dream lives. It's people who believe that they can. It's the people who are crazy enough. And you have to be a little crazy, because your mind will tell you, what are the odds? You'll never make it out of,
Why me?
I don't know how many people, 8 billion people now in the world. Like, who will tell you that you will be the one to have that incredible relationship, even with yourself, or go to that place, climb that mountain, meet your favorite person in the world? And I was sharing the story actually with a friend, Dennis, which you might have met at the summit, at the Intelligent Change Summit, because we have a favorite book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Have you read the book?
Yes.
I read it in high school when I first moved to Toronto, and I was obsessed by Paulo Coelho. Just a short side note for the dreamers out there, because we kind of started on this topic of dreaming. And for all the dreamers out there, if you haven't read this book, it's like the Bible for the dreamers. So read it. It's super short. I've read it probably 7 times. And at the time, because my family just immigrated to Canada, I felt like I was that alchemist, like going through life, uncovering little clues and finding my personal legend. That's what he calls it. We all need to find our personal legend, which is basically the vision of where we need to go. And it will be different for every single person. And that's the beauty of life, because we're all different. That's what makes us, that's what the contrast, the diversity, it's what makes life beautiful. So anyways, going back to The Alchemist, I read the book, then read all Paulo Coelho's books. And then years later, when I had Instagram, I had a new book by him that I posted a picture of. And then he retweeted it. He saw it, he retweeted it, we started talking. Anyways, long story short, I ended up having dinner with him at his house in Geneva. Like, what are the odds? How crazy. This was about 11 years ago when I first moved to London. So he invited me and I met his wife. And I asked him, like, how did you write The Alchemist? And he said, I channeled it. Like, to this day, he doesn't know himself. But the moral of the story is that, like, he was the person that if anybody asked me, like, who is the person that you would love to have dinner with, like, in the whole of the world, dead or alive, I would say Paulo Coelho. And for me to even create this experience, somehow manifested, right?
Yeah.
People don't like that word, but it's just a word. It's whatever association or attachment you have to the word, you need to drop that, right? So I always believe that anything is possible. And I live in this beautiful movie that keeps getting better and better, and the plot just gets more interesting. And because I believe, that is what I create, because we are all co-creators of reality. So you need to drop those self-limiting beliefs. you need to drop a lot of fears, because you got to live in courage. If you want to grow, like courage, there's another great book called Letting Go that talks about different emotions and how every emotion, have you read it?
No.
Must. I've read it so many times as well. Forget the author's name. I think Hawkins is his surname. Letting go. And basically every emotion calibrates a different vibration. And at the level of courage, it's like when we start going up. So that's a lot of people, let's say, who are entrepreneurs or start their own ventures, they are at courage. And then you go up. And then I think the highest level is peace and love. It's like enlightened people calibrated that. So, yeah. But what stops us from courage is fear. Fear that we're not good enough, fear that we will fail, fear. So many irrational fears. But you won't be able to get anywhere if you don't face your fears. And I know it is so freaking scary because I was the type of person who would say I had all the irrational fears, like small, silly fears, like even, like flying sometimes, right? Even though I love it, like I would have this fear of flying. And it's like, okay, but I love traveling, so I'm still gonna do it. And I do love flying too, but it's like sometimes it's like, oh, but I'm in this box in the plane, what is something? We all have that, right? Like, but do you believe the fear? And do you allow for it to stop you from living? Because if you can't take that flight, you can't get to that opportunity or to see that person you're in love with, right? Like, again, you're limiting your life if you listen to the fears. So gotta drop the fears, gotta drop the limiting beliefs. Sometimes you have to drop the people who are dragging you down. That was really big on my journey because I remember when I was first starting out, exactly when I had my first venture, like doing the fashion styling, there was a friend of mine. I guess she was challenged by the fact that I was dreaming so big and she felt this like shift in my energy. And I think
it does that to people, doesn't it?
When we have people in our circle, maybe our family even, or close friends who they don't want to grow. They just want to stay small and comfortable. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. That's their journey. And we need to also respect that. But if you feel like they're dragging you down, and I felt like she was kind of like trying to like, not even put me down, but like always verbalize these like fears of hers, really. She was projecting her own reality, but I really didn't like that because it didn't make me feel good. And because I was so in tune with myself, I literally had to break up with my friend, which was really, really sad because I love her as a person, but also it was dragging me down because I was quite close with her. And
how do you do that gracefully?
It's a difficult process because I feel like because I met with her a year later and I was like, kind of felt like maybe we can reconnect. And I felt like that resentment. And I was like, I want to tell you all about the last 12 months of my life. I feel like I'm a different person. And she's like, well, nothing changed in my life. And I was like, how is that even possible? But it is. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I was honest. Maybe it's not the right thing to do, but I believe in honesty and authenticity. It's one of my values, transparency. And I told her, listen, I'm really trying to focus on being positive and I'm doing a lot of inner work. Because again, I grew up with a lot of fears and anxiety. And I just think we need to take some time off from our friendship. I just can't hang out, which is like breaking up. Yeah. Literally like a breakup that you would break up with a boy, right? Yeah. And she didn't take it well, but she had no choice. Yeah, of course. And I did try to reconnect, but it never worked out again. But we keep in touch kind of, but it's never the same.
It's this thing that you're saying, it's very common that, I hear this from people, that there's always somebody in their circle, at least somebody, that is just not vibrating on that same wavelength. The values are not really aligned. The growth stages are very different, let's put it that way. And at some point you need to think about yourself. It's self-preservation, and it goes even if you're motivated. So for people that are really motivated to serve and they're very altruistic, this might be hard to hear because they're like, well, that's just selfish. But actually, if we bring it back to a full circle, which is you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you're all about service and all about your mission and all about helping other people, you still need to take care of yourself first in order to do that. So if you have a big vision, have a big mission, you want to serve I don't know how many people and help them, you need to 100% step number one, take care of yourself. So it just sounds like you were, intuitively doing that. And another thing to think about there is in your action in doing that, you're also doing her a service. Because even in however long you were together, when that friction was appearing, that makes her question, her life, her choices, even at unconscious level, you know, even if she's not in a moment where she can, you know, verbalize that proactively, something still is happening within. And so when that split happens, I think still she is left with something that she can work on or understand something about later on. So everything happens in its right time.
I love that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So these are just some things, and I think it's a great starting point.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm sure there's more things if we really sit with it. You know, just even, you have a book here. Can I pick it up? I really love it because it kind of resonates with this. It says, if you aren't free of yourself, how will you ever become yourself? So sometimes you have to free yourself of yourself, which is, again, that going back to that belief system. Like, you will tell someone something and they'll be like, I'm not that kind of person. And I remember Tony Robbins saying this years ago. He said, when did you sit down and define yourself? And that question just stuck with me. So sometimes if I catch myself labeling myself in some kind of a box, I ask myself that question, like, when did I sit down and define?
When did we decide that we're going to be this person? How about we undecide that?
There's no such thing. We're pliable. We're always evolving and growing and expanding. And again, isn't that the most beautiful thing about life?
100%. So many things that you say resonate with me so strongly, and I
can feel that.
Yeah.
On the same wavelength.
It's like, exactly. You're just playing tennis here with similar kind of beliefs. And something that you said, I think, is really important again to underscore, which is these limiting beliefs, the beliefs, the story you tell yourself, the narrative you tell of yourself. So I can't stress enough how important it is.
Oh yeah.
What you'll keep telling yourself, which is why the affirmations exist, which is why the 5-minute journal exists, which is why the mirror work exists, which is why you need to limit the people that are speaking negatively to you or about you from your, let's say, your space, right? Because everything you see and hear constantly seeps into your conscious and subconscious,
100%.
and it creates how you feel and then how you act, right? And then it creates your life ultimately. That goes back to what you said earlier as well about the voice that you have in your head, right? And this is just so important to understand how much we can control it. So I catch myself, for example, this doesn't happen very often, but rarely I'll find myself like envy, for example, jealousy is something that I almost never ever feel. And then once in a blue moon, I'm gonna be somewhere and I'll just be conscious and aware. I'll catch myself thinking this like a snarky
and I love that
comment.
You're sharing that because I think it's what makes us human.
Yeah, absolutely.
These passing thoughts, they don't have to make sense sometimes.
Yeah.
And also we don't have to identify with them.
Absolutely
you can
not.
say that, I don't want you, go away.
That's exactly
Right?
why I bring this up. It's like I hear this thing in my head and it's like says something snarky or something nasty. I'm like, whoa, because I catch it. I'm like, hey, where did this come from? And I literally said, hey, don't be a bitch. What is this? Where is this coming from? And I catch it.
I love it.
It's like it's going through my head and it wanted to nest there, but I caught it. I became aware of it. And I was like, no.
Because you do a lot of inner work and it shows. And that's why you even noticed it. Because if your mind is a place where you have thousands of these every day, it will be very hard to catch it, right? And most people who are mean or judgmental towards others, they don't mean it because, first of all, they're mean and judgmental towards themselves. I always tell my daughter, she's a 7-year-old, like whenever, how do I say it? Like obviously every story has a antagonist, protagonist. And I try to explain to her, there are no bad people. There are people with bad habits who maybe were, I think, dealt the wrong hand. Like people can sometimes have the wrong environment that they grow up in. But ultimately, I feel like our nature, I know this is maybe a different topic, but like nature-wise, I think like we're all come from love and heart, but we forget.
Yeah.
Right? But again, that story, like it's like the smoky cloud that prevents us from seeing who we truly are, which is love, pure love and unconditional love. But I think, again, we live in a society that has greatly forgotten that. But there is definitely an awakening happening, I think. And then, I don't know, I was talking to this therapist that I told you about earlier, Denise Logan, and she said what we're experiencing now is awakening of the feminine. Because we're living in this wounded masculine. And I thought that was so beautiful because I personally feel that it's happening within me as well. So anyways, I'm getting off topic here. There's so many things to unpack. We'll open many different tabs. But going back to what you're saying about the narrative, I think, because I would like to emphasize that point as well with what you said about using affirmations. And you can retrain your subconscious
Reprogram
mind.
it, yeah.
You can reprogram it. And for anybody watching or listening to this right now, the simplest thing to do is to do it first thing in the morning when you first wake up or right before you go to sleep. This is the time when your brain is the most suggestible to that change. And when you're in that dreamlike state, you can literally, whatever you want to experience and embody, just say it to yourself. And even better thing to do, instead of just saying, oh, I'm confident, because your mind will tell you, well, bullshit, you're not. Look at you, like you haven't done this or that. So attach that affirmation to an experience where you have exercised that confidence. I'm sure there was at least one time in your life where you were confident, or where you were courageous, or you were kind, or you were whatever you are trying to embody. So feel that experience, and as you say that affirmation, connect to that experience, and it will be so much more powerful, because then your mind starts believing it. Yeah. And then it's a lot more powerful. So yeah, stick to those affirmations morning and evening for 21 days, and you will see already how your life is going to start shifting. Yeah. And you're going to have new thoughts that are so much more positive and less judgmental. I used to be very judgmental towards myself. I used to be so hard on myself. What I hear now in my head, first of all, it's a lot more quieter, which is great, because you can actually just like enjoy more and be more relaxed. Because when you have a lot of thoughts, when you live a lot in your mind, you're so stressed and anxious. So what I've noticed recently is like I'm so much more relaxed.
But you think it comes with age or with work?
I think with inner work, it can happen at any age. Definitely age gives you an opportunity, but it doesn't mean that it will happen. Yeah. In fact, I think quite the reverse happens. If you look at older people, it's so easy to see what emotions they have experienced. Because when we're young, we don't have wrinkles, right? We can make many different expressions, frowning, angry face, fearful face, whatever, but it doesn't stay. But as you start aging, what expressions you're experiencing day to day are going to stick. Look around at older people, and also how you treat your body, right? Like a lot of older people, they are slouching. They're almost like they're hiding, right? And I think that happens again when you have forgotten your personal legend and you didn't live a life that was aligned, and you kind of become resentful. I'm not saying all older people are like that, obviously, but I'm just saying you can come across a lot of older people who, when they see a happy couple kissing, they roll their eyes, or if they see a child screaming, or it's almost like they have no compassion or kindness left in them. And that, to me, when I see that, I'm like, I want to be a happy old person. When I'm in my 80s, 90s, whatever, I want to look at the happy couple kissing and, smile with a huge smile. And if the child is crying, I want to go and actually help, because you lived your life fully and you can still connect and feel for those experiences. But if you've resented love, if you've resented your children, if you resented all these experiences, you will become a resentful person as you age. And it will show on your face. You won't be able to hide it forever, right? So, well, now there's Botox. But even that, I think not even the wrinkles, it shows through the eyes. Because we can always read people. Yeah. Their intentions.
Energy speaks louder than words.
Like for me, when I look at people's eyes, I see everything. The light shines through, and so does the darkness. And it doesn't mean the ones with the darkness are bad. Again,
and it doesn't mean that they need to stay there always.
Protagonist. I feel we're all going through something. Yeah. Like we all have a journey, and some people have it harder than others, and it's not easy sometimes to change. I totally understand and agree. Sometimes we have a favorable environment, sometimes we don't. But I believe in free will, and that we all can if we choose to.
Yeah. Something that you spoke about earlier, I also believe that inherently we're all good. We're all good people inherently, and at soul level we're all equal. Some people, as you said, they're not dealt the best hand, and their circumstances might have been very difficult. And as you know, you're a mother. Upbringing, those up to 7 years, they're so formative, they're so important. And if unfortunately you've had really harsh environment and you haven't had that even one touch point that can inspire you, that can somehow influence your thinking to the positive, then unfortunately you're left absorbing just what you have around you. That's not to say all of that cannot change in later years. So there's different stages in life, right? So I always say that our job as kids is just to learn and absorb. That's the only thing we can do. We don't have yet this sorting ability or decisional power to discern what's good, what's not, what's for us, what's not for us. However, that becomes our job when we become older, right?
You'll be surprised how much awareness kids can have, though. I can see already my daughter, like the way she speaks about what's right and wrong for her. The moral compass is already there at 7. I'm shocked myself.
Are you though? You helped create it.
I give her a lot of freedom to be herself, but I love seeing that she is observant enough to already pick up on what's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And as she observes, and I always tell her, listen, but this person might not know, might not have had this experience if she is making a judgment. But she's already aware what's right or wrong for her, which is fascinating at such a, she's only 7.5.
You know what I love? That you say for her.
Because it's not right.
It's not about you.
Not black and white.
No. It's not about you. You're not trying to, as much as you're trying to
inspire,
give her the inheritance of what is the best that you have and you have accumulated over the years. I like that you keep saying for her, which emphasizes to me that you very much encourage her to be her own person and make 100%. Her own decisions, create her own value system. You're not enforcing or indoctrinating her, which I think is pretty much a recipe for somebody to grow up as their own human being that is self-sufficient, that's confident, that's powerful in their own. So great things to come.
And I love that you brought up the 0 to 7 because it is when our subconscious mind gets formed. I did a lot of research on that even before I had a child because I felt such a huge responsibility as somebody who decided to have a child that I want to make sure, and nobody's perfect, obviously, I'm definitely not a perfect parent, but I wanted to make sure that I pass on the least amount of my negative conditioning or unproductive. Again, don't want to label it as negative. I don't want to pass on this unproductive conditioning to her, right? And it takes so much inner work not to. It's so easy to fall into the patterns and become our parents, you know? Sometimes I catch myself like, oh, this is what my dad would say. But again, if you do the inner work, you have the awareness, you catch yourself, you change the pattern. But it takes work. For sure.
You know what? This kind of brings us to something that I want us to talk about later, which is freedom, which is one of your core values, as I've figured out
my top
from
value.
same here, by the way. So that's why I think we're resonating. Yeah, exactly. But speaking about freedom, and if we really think about it deeply, freedom is something that all people at some level in varying quantities want, and it means different things to different people. But if we universally package it up, it's freedom of mind, freedom of spirit, freedom of finances, freedom of physical body, so location, etc. All nice and well. However, as much as freedom gives you this liberation and people want it, it is also, if you really think about it, that you can have anything and you can be anything. It is the scariest thing in the world. Freedom is like free fall. If you embrace freedom 100%, it is like falling in air forever, because you can go up, down, left, right, north, west. And falling is scary. So I want to know whether you've thought about it that way as well, and whether you've acknowledged it that way. And if you have, how can people that realize that they've come to this mind-blowing and life-changing, nothing less, realization that you actually, as a human being, you can do anything. When that comes, it's like, but it's also very scary, because now, what do? You can do literally anything. So how do you navigate this potency of this realization and harness its power in the most productive way to ultimately lead you to that vision of your life?
Such a deep question. I love it. I want to add something. I think it's a privilege to be able to do anything, and not everybody has that privilege. I want to start with that because I think for anybody who is in Gaza now, for example, these small little children who just became orphaned, breaks my heart even thinking about it. They can't do anything, right? Or maybe some people like Nelson Mandela, who was wrongly accused and was in prison. Sometimes you can't do anything, but you can always choose your attitude. And that is the ultimate freedom from where then we can do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because the true freedom, even if you don't have physical freedom, and sometimes you don't, right? Like, for anyone who lives in a place where there's war, Ukraine, you know, Gaza, so many other places in the world, or just don't have the means to move to a place where there are opportunities to make money and make a living so they can support their family. Sometimes you feel stuck, right? But your physical stuckness is only a reflection of your mental stuckness, right? So I think once you shift mentally, and there's so many stories of that, of people who experience Auschwitz. And I think it's called Life is Beautiful, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. We need to look it up.
Yes.
But it's about a story of a father and a son who end up in Auschwitz. And he makes the whole thing a beautiful story. And he kind of makes it a play, almost like as if none of these things are happening, to really try to protect his son. And I think in the end, I don't remember, I watched it years ago, I think the father ends up not making it, but the son ends up escaping. And that ability to not go to the darkest places in your mind, even when you are faced with the craziest atrocities and the craziest experiences and seeing all this negativity in the world and people doing things that don't align with who you are, what you believe in, evil things, right? Because in life, I like to live in my positive bubble, but I'm aware that it's not all positive.
Yeah.
But I think you can choose your bubble. And the more you choose the bubble, and the more you live in the bubble, the more people you attract to that bubble who are like you, the bigger the beautiful, expansive, positive bubble grows. But having said that, I believe also life is not meant to be just one colored, right? Like there will always, I think, be some level of diversity. But going back to your question of how, you know, like, can you repeat your question again?
Yes.
Because I feel like I've gotten off topic a bit,
No,
but I want to get to that point of like...
So my question was, for, let's say, the people that live in the Western society, the adults that have the freedom of choice and let's say relatively, I don't want to say normal life, but they have their basic freedoms, let's say, who are not, you know, in immediate danger. How, when they do the inner work and they actually come to that moment of realization, you know, they can become with time. And this is one big moment. Like, I really appreciate what you said and what you added there, because when I say this, you can do anything, but you can't do everything at the same time. Exactly. Is one that I heard, and it really resonated with me. So if I today decide, you know, in my lifetime, I'd like to be a singer, I'd like to have my show, and I'd love to write a book and speak on stages, I can do all of that. If God is willing, I will live a long life, and I have enough time to actually exercise all of those life paths. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so this is the power of that freedom, that when you drop the shackles of, oh, I need to get good grades and uni and then family and then kids and then pension and I die. When you drop the shackles of the societal expectations and the written formula, one for all, and you're like, okay, well, actually, I'm my own person. I can make my own rules. I don't have to do anything. I can do anything that I choose to. How do you then not get overwhelmed by this all-encompassing freedom? And how do you navigate that?
So again, going back to that quote that you can have anything, but you cannot have everything. I think you go back to that intuition. And I think, I've been studying intuition lately and I love it, because if I look back at my life, and I did this exercise and I recommend for anyone listening to do the same. If you go back on your life and you journal, like sit down in a quiet place and spend some time journaling and looking back at your life and all the decisions that were based not on your mind and what made sense, but were irrational maybe, but were intuitive. Maybe quitting a job, moving to a new place, breaking up with a person, breaking up with a friend, right? Like intuitively, you felt something was wrong and you moved in a different direction in whatever life circumstances. So as I journaled, I literally had pages and pages and pages of this information and different life circumstances and directions that I took. I realized that whenever I followed my intuition, it always took me to a better place, a place of growth and a place of more joy, like more intense aliveness. And it was really powerful. And I did this exercise because in the last, 12 months, I've been going through like a personal metamorphosis, and I've separated from my husband, who has been a business partner and a best friend and a co-parent for the last 16 years. I mean, parents only for the last 7 years, but we've been together for more than 16 years, and it was very difficult, right? Like, you have this identity that you create when you're in a relationship, and your mind tells you one thing, but then your heart and your intuition tells you different things. And how do you reconcile? And then society tells you different things, right? So it's like I really had to sit with myself for months before I made a very difficult decision to leave my relationship, because it no longer felt authentic to stay in it, even though it might look perfect on so many levels, and it's a great relationship. But if it doesn't feel right, is it right to stay? And I mean, that's a question for all of us to answer. For me, as I sat with it, I'm like, what is it? It's my intuition guiding me in a different direction. And I'm like, but do I trust it? Like, why should I trust the intuition? I should trust the mind. The mind tells me on paper everything is good. I should stay in this comfort zone because it's comfortable, it's safe, it's worked for many years. But then when I did the exercise, I was like, I know what I need to do. I need to follow that aliveness. And it tells me it's outside of my comfort zone. And it's very scary because it's the unknown. It's like stepping into the dark woods and not knowing what is going to be there. But that's what it takes.
I love that you say that. And we'll definitely touch upon relationships, because I have quite a few things I want to talk about there. But everyone wants, like, I've done, 60 interviews maybe, right? And
amazing.
People, thank you. And I always used to ask people, so what's their, what they really want from life? And most of the people also in the coaching practice, people want to be happy. So many people say, I just want to be happy. But what does happy mean, really? So if we think about it a little bit more deeply and we dissect it, what we'll often find is that being happy is intrinsically linked to you living authentically, right?
Absolutely.
But what that means is taking steps that require incredible courage, because oftentimes what means truly authentic to you has nothing to do with the people around you say is right, what the closest people to say is right, what the society expects of you is right. So you have to be really, really brave to take that path of authenticity. And from what I'm gathering from your life path, from, what I know about you, from the interviews that I've listened that you've done with other people, is that throughout your life, you've made choices that are always prioritize that alignment with your values and who you really are. So that might come from, for example, if we think about the freedom itself, right? So the business that you've made sure that the businesses that you have allow you to travel, allow you to be flexible, allow you to feel free, like physically free, right? And then, for example, this, recent change in your life, I like how you call it metamorphosis, of separating from your, wonderful long-term partner, husband, friend. So something like that could only be propelled by you prioritizing, above all things, being truly aligned and authentic. So first of all, am I right in this guess? And then if I am, then how are people to honor that in their own life, this authenticity?
You gotta face the fear. There's no escape. And then you gotta face everyone in your life, because they're all gonna have opinions, right? I've been very blessed, like, in my life. I think, again, going back to like dropping, I know it sounds maybe not so nice, but like really dropping toxic people in your life, because we are the average of our 5 best friends. And if you have supportive people, it makes your life so much easier, so much more natural, and again, supportive. And you can hear that authentic voice even deeper, because people who really truly are also doing the work, when you're going through something, they hold the space without necessarily projecting their reality or telling you what to do. And what I really loved in my experience, as I was, again, going back to my decision to separate, like, a lot of my girlfriends and just friends, they just held space. And then again, you connect to that authenticity. But when everybody is bombarding you with their opinions and projections, it's very difficult to connect to that authentic space. You have to make the time. Honestly, there's no shortcuts. You gotta meditate, journal, go to a trip by yourself in the woods. You know, I haven't done that, to be honest. That's probably one of my fears. But I've been spending a lot more time just with myself, which I haven't done before. I'm an extrovert. I love people. And also I had a partner for, 16 years where like we talked about everything and we spent like 24/7 together. Whereas now like I'm spending more time alone and I am reconnecting to that authentic part of myself. It takes that time and effort to make that connection because it's like any other relationship. The relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship, as we all know. But it won't just happen if you don't make the effort to sit with yourself.
You'll date someone else or you won't date yourself.
Yeah, like
what is that about?
You have to love yourself first for anyone to love you. Otherwise, you're going to be like a chameleon, changing for other people to love and accept you. But you're not really secure. And we talked a little bit before the interview on this whole concept of attachment theory. And what I've been learning a lot about in the last 12 months as I've been going through my metamorphosis of, the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. I'm still in the process. I've realized that I wasn't yet secure. I'm definitely on the path, and there are moments and chapters in my life where I embody this secure person, but there's still some inner childhood wounds that needed to be faced. And it's been a really exciting work to do actually, because it connects me to more authentic part of myself. It's again, I'm peeling layers of what is not me to see what is me. And the more I see what is me, the more I feel relaxed. And it's just ease. Everything is with ease. And you don't need to put as much effort, right? That you still
because you don't need to put on masks for others, right?
You don't wear any masks. You in any social gathering, you're just you. You're not trying to impress. You're just who you are.
Chilling.
And life is just so much more relaxed. And I love this state because, like I mentioned before, I was very, very anxious. And it's beautiful to see this even progress in my personal journey and experience. And of course, I have big vision of where I want to be, what I want to embody, which I think is great. But I'm also very grateful for now as well. Because it's not about perfection as well, right? It's
100%.
about the journey and enjoying even where you are today.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Again, so many
things to unpack.
So many ways to go. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate for the people listening, like a really important point, which is, again, if you're striving for that happiness, right? Take the time to really understand what that means for you and just contemplate the notion that more often than not, happiness goes hand in hand with true authenticity. So really taking the time to reconciliate who that authentic you really is. And then making the steps, as uncomfortable as they might be, to allow that person to actually exist and to come out to life and, breathe, see the air, see the light, breathe the air, And the more space you allow for that true you to come out, the more happy you'll be. So it's like a nice partnership there.
I love that. Absolutely resonate with that message.
Oh my goodness. So which path do you take? Right. So the relationships. Okay. So as somebody that has had a really successful relationship for so many years, and
the Prince Charming, Alex is like as good as it gets, I would say. Incredible partner.
Lottery. You guys both won the lottery with each other.
Yeah.
And I as I follow you both, I see that there was a lot of people, who always ask questions. There's some people that are like, oh, literally, I'm like mind quoting. I remember I saw this one story, I rolled my eyes. They were like, oh, if you guys are so mature or something, why can't you figure it out? Basically, there's some people that, will always throw shade, and there'll be...
People are projecting their own fears and their own reality.
Precisely. Yeah. But I want to say that from my point of view, even if you guys are separating now, it absolutely throws no shade to your relationship. You had a beautiful, wonderful relationship.
And we still do.
Yeah, exactly. Like a romantic relationship. For 16 years, you have a beautiful daughter. You have everything to show for it. You're still friends. You're still business partners. This is like the dream scenario for anyone. So to that point, seeing that you have a successful track record of a very successful relationship, what would you say are the cornerstones or, some great tips, I guess, for amazing spouse romantic relationship that you could give that has worked for you guys?
It's a great question. I think making time for each other and not taking each other for granted. Because I think especially in a long-term relationship, because I've been in one, and I think it is very rare and special when I tell people, and I'm super young still, when I tell people I've been with someone for 16 years, they're like, wait, how old are you? Because I thought you were in your late 20s. I'm like, well, not really. But anyways, that's another story. And you really start thinking that, well, I got this person and like, I don't need to impress them, and it's not even about impressing, but sometimes you're not as present. Like a new fresh relationship, but we act differently, right? We're like on our best behavior, we put the extra effort when we dress up, like we look in the mirror, fix our hair, like we just, it's that freshness that I think ultimately, we have to do our best to keep for as long as possible. If we want, of course, the relationship to last, and like doing the inner work together as a couple to go deeper. And we've done that for many years. Obviously, that's why we've had that relationship. But I think at some point, maybe also it's chapters. Like you're meant to have a chapter and then like you outgrow the container. And I think for us anyways, on our journey, I just felt like I need because I think ultimately, we're in a relationship with a person, but also ultimately we're on a personal journey, right? And sometimes what we need on our personal journey might not be what's right for the relationship.
Yep.
So I think for my personal self-development, again, to become a more secure person, it's almost like I need to get myself out.
Yeah.
And even though my life didn't get easier in any way, in fact, I have way more responsibilities now as a person who is like on her own. I feel again the most alive, authentic, like it just feels right. So how do I know I made the right decision? It's because of that. But again, going back to like, sometimes I think it's not preventable that a relationship will expire.
You know what?
So no matter how much effort you put, no matter how much therapists you see, and I've seen it so many times with other friends, right? Sometimes relationships are meant to be till death do us part. And sometimes they're not. And I don't think one is more valuable. Yeah, 60% of marriages end up in divorce or separation, right? And I think this is optimistic because I think many people stay together because they can't separate, because they cannot afford to separate, because now they have children and all these expenses. So I'm very privileged to even be in a position where we can do it not only in a peaceful way, where we're still friends and we work together and co-parent, but also in a way where I can afford to do that as a woman.
Of course.
Because oftentimes you're a slave to not being able to. But again, going back to like the relationship, because your question was more like how to have a healthy, long, happy relationship. I think you have to have friendship. If you're not friends with each other, I think it's very difficult to have a good relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you might have crazy chemistry and physical attraction, but ultimately, like, do you feel safe with your person? Like, I don't know. For me, every relationship that I've been in, and I haven't had many, like the friendship is like number one thing that has to be there. Like it's not something I can oversee. And I've seen couples where, I'm laughing because even my parents, like I wouldn't say they are best friends. They are still together, but judge for yourself. What would you prefer to have? A relationship that lasts 40 years where, you might have lots of arguments and, it's not perfect in any sense. And again, we're not trying to attain perfection, but it's maybe not your ideal relationship, but you have chemistry. What is more important to you? There's no right or wrong, right? Like for me, like feeling safe and having that peace in the home that you share with your partner, that can only happen if you have friendship. Because when you have friendship, you have that great communication, you care about each other, you make time, you're present. It's the basic thing that needs to happen. And then it's wonderful, of course, you need to have the chemistry and like the intimacy and all of that. So make time for each other, because otherwise you're going to grow apart.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Definitely. So be a friend, make time for each other, be present. I love these. Thank you so much.
Novelty is really important as well in relationships, because I think the one thing that we do when we're dating someone, rather than like in long-term relationships, we tend to have these things like we do the same thing. We go to the same restaurant. Yeah, it becomes a routine. We go on the same holidays and it's just like boring, For some people it might work, but like for me it doesn't. So I think it's important. Like what I've learned is that like, again, you have to constantly be on your personal journey of self-development, that you are changing, that you're growing. It's almost like your partner is constantly thinking they're within your partner, because you are not stagnant.
Yeah.
That's how you stay exciting as a partner, and you can be in a long-term relationship, because if I feel like ultimately I want to be with someone like myself, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, in order to attract someone who is your dream man, you have to be the dream woman first. So like, I always think like, how can I be the best person I can be? Then that person would want to date me. And I think ultimately when you do that, again, you just end up attracting somebody who is the opposite of you in terms of polarity of the masculine and feminine energy.
really, really important point that I picked up there, which is so important, I think, for people to understand, is that your number one relationship, your number one plot journey is always the one of yourself.
Main character.
Your main character. And it doesn't matter if you're a parent and now you have kids and you feel this limitless, infinite love towards them and responsibility, and even if you have a company that's you put in 40 years of your life in it, or even if you have a partner that you love, you think more than life itself, right? Even if you have all of those things in your life, your number one relationship and your number one, how should I say this character journey is of yourself, of who you are, and your own self-development and your self-evolution, because out of your own kind of perspective is how you see the world and you experience it. And your relationship with someone else is, even this is in the word, you're with someone else. You're with your work, you're with your parents, you're with your children, etc. So I think you can never really neglect yourself and your own journey at the cost of raising your kids, being with your partner, delivering for your company.
That happens all the time.
And it happens all the time.
Self-abandon,
self-sacrifice, all of those things. But you can't. It's so basic to say this, but people really need this reminding of you pour in your own cup, you grow your own plant, like whatever analogy works for you, and then from within to the outside, and outside, everyone's outside. Your kids are next to you, but they're outside of you. Your work is maybe all around you, still outside of you, and the people, all of that is outside of you. So if you're able to keep that connection and that understanding how important it is to always cultivate yourself from within, grow from within, then with you growing, your relationships are growing, your work is growing, your competencies are growing, you're radiating. As I said, like you as a person, right? You're radiating inside, from inside towards outside. And so you attract all of these things, right? So I think that's a really important thing that I picked up from what you just said there.
Emphasize that. Yeah, I think what happens also in long-term relationships, people become enmeshed in each other. This whole enmeshment. And I never thought I was enmeshed until I got out of the relationship. And I was like, I was definitely enmeshed. But you don't see it when you're in it, because it happens so slowly and subtly that you don't realize. And it's the beautiful thing about love as well. It's like you merge into this one thing. But I'm now curious, like, who is Mimi on her own? Like, I really missed her. I'm so excited to experience her again. Because for me, it's been 16 years. I mean, I was 21 when we got together. And what I realize now from all the work that I've been doing on like becoming more self-secure is that ultimately, and that's another tip going back to your other question on relationships, this is like, I'm almost like upgrading myself now for my next relationship, because I want to be even a better partner. Because of course I want my next relationship to last forever, right? If possible, why not, right? If not, that's okay too, because be open for anything. But what I came across from one of this therapists, and I can't remember anymore because I have a few that I like to listen to on YouTube, but she was talking about secure attachment, and she said that ultimately, when you're in a relationship, secure people spend 50% of their free time. Okay, we're not talking about work and like all this, because we have all these obligations. We're talking about free time. So let's say you have 4 hours a day that are free, and then whatever that times 7, right? Those free hours that you have in a week, 50% of that, she says that you should be spending away from your partner, doing things that make you happy. Yep. Whether it's with your friends, whether it's a pottery class, a dancing class, traveling. I definitely was not doing that. I was putting myself last. Usually, I think women especially do that more often than men, because we're conditioned in a way from generations and generations. It's a generational thing, but I think the narrative is changing. And I think another exercise that I would want anyone who's listening to do, whether you're in a relationship or not, is to identify your wants, needs, and non-negotiables. It's such a great exercise. I remember when I came across it, a friend, Masha, shared it with me because her therapist told her to do it. And then when she told me, I was like, did you do it? She's like, no, I haven't done it. I'm like, okay, we need to do this. I did it with a few girlfriends, and it was so great to then compare the lists as well. But I actually never did that while I was in a relationship. I did this after I got out. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize like I had all these needs. Yeah. And wants are like the extras, nice to have, but not necessary. but nice to have. And non-negotiables are non-negotiables. So it could be like abuse, like physical abuse, or like drug abuse, or, we'll all have different things on our list. But I think it's so important to be connected to our needs, because most people are not even aware of what their needs are. So how can somebody meet your needs if you don't even know what your needs are in a relationship? So it's a great exercise to do if you are in a relationship, and then you compare and you save the list of your partner. And if you care about your partner, make sure you meet their need. Because again, going back to that attachment theory, and there's so much to unpack there. Of course, don't want to make the whole episode about it, but I can just lightly touch on it. So I don't know how much you know, right? There's 4 types. Ideally, you're secure. I think statistically, they say 50% of the population is. I don't believe that's true. I think people self-diagnose themselves as secure. But if we really unpack, I thought I was secure. I was secure with Alex in my secure relationship. But if you take me out now and you put me in a dating scene, I am slightly fearful avoidant. Right? Because I go back to my old conditioning. I've earned this security in my relationship with Alex based on having a secure partner. But every partner you will meet will bring out different things out of you, will trigger different childhood wounds that you're still carrying that are in subconscious. So it has been fascinating to learn about it, because again, I was convinced I was secure. And then I was like, oh, there's this fear of abandonment that's coming out of nowhere. I didn't even know I had this, right? And as I'm doing the work, so for anyone who's not familiar, there's anxious preoccupied, there's dismissive avoidant, who's somebody, so anxious preoccupied obviously is a person who is quite like needy and needs a lot of self-assurance. So slightly insecure, right? Or severely insecure sometimes, right? Depending on the spectrum. And then dismissive avoidant is somebody who is very self-contained. They don't share a lot of emotions. So people who are anxious, they're quite open. They love very intensely. They fall in love easily. They're not very guarded. These are the people, again, who like meet someone and they're like, oh, I want to marry them the next day. And it's like, really? Like you said the same to the guy like 2 weeks ago, another guy, right? So we all have those friends, right? Or maybe we are those people.
Yeah. If you don't know who it is, it's you.
But that's why the opposites attract. So sometimes the anxious preoccupied will attract the dismissive avoidant, who are the complete opposite. They're very guarded, not in touch with their feelings and emotions. Also, they tend to disappear, so that they can like give you a bit of love and then they'll disappear.
Trigger the anxieties, for sure.
It's fascinating. And then there's the fearful avoidant, which is, like I said, I resonate the most with. Although I feel like I'm mostly secure, but I can see the work that needs to still be done. So if you had parents who, and by the way, the way we form this attachment is based on how we were raised and how we were loved as children by our caregivers or parents. So if you had one parent who was anxious and one parent who was dismissive avoidant, oftentimes you become fearful avoidant, because you learn 2 different ways to love from your caregivers. And that's what I resonate with the most. I never understood before, when I used to date before I met Alex, I would be the type of person who could be like hot and cold. It's like I could be very loving and I could just like cancel you out if you like trigger me the wrong way. And I didn't even understand this about myself. I was thinking like how I can be so hot and cold. Why am I so hot and cold? And then now in my 30s, as I'm learning about this stuff, it's fascinating because I'm able to understand, and I'm also able to then go beyond it. Like once you have awareness, you get to choose who you are. And I remember there was another, again, so many therapists, I really need to like write down their names. I think her name is Brianna West, if I'm not mistaken. She said that you become secure based on your relationship with your insecurities. And I was like, oh. So the more you accept the insecure part, like even me becoming aware that I have this fearful avoidant tendencies is making me more secure because I'm aware. Because if you're not aware, you're not aware. Yeah. You're just like perpetually doing the same things and hurting people or hurting yourself. You're not aware. You don't see the pattern. The moment you become aware and you see the pattern, you become automatically more secure. And then you can respond in a different way rather than react, right? Because reaction comes from that subconscious mind that is just reacting based on the conditioning. And you know, when you actually respond, it comes from conscious mind, from the heart, not the fear. So yeah, again, so much to unpack there, but for anyone who is not familiar with attachment theory and let's say is in a relationship and is struggling or wants to be in a happy, healthy, secure relationship, go deep on that because I feel like it's so underrated and the world needs to
Again, it's about awareness and about clarity. Once you know, you can do something about it. When you don't know, you're in the dark, you don't know where to move, which direction to go, because you literally see nothing. You're just guessing. So that's the power. Actually, my grandfather used to say that. He used to say, there's a saying in Russian that knowing is the light and not knowing is the darkness.
Oh,
so
that's so beautiful. Completely agree.
But yeah, so actually I wanted to ask you about this evolution that you had with the attachment. So being with Alex, which I assume is secure attachment, how did that change over time? How did his influence or being with the secure change your attachment with time?
You mean when we were in a relationship? Yeah. So when I met Alex, he was definitely secure because he was raised in a family where he received unconditional love and his emotional needs were met. So when, as a child, your emotional needs are met, ultimately you usually become secure. So very lucky. I feel like, again, most of the world, it's just, we're not all fortunate to have that. And it's not to say that our parents were not good parents. They were doing the best they could with what they had, because they also had parents who couldn't provide that security.
Went through wars.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not here to judge, but I think understanding helps you to, again, heal and also accept and forgive sometimes, you know. And you don't even need to forgive because, again, nobody did anything wrong. They did the best they could. So he had this gift of unconditional love, which made him a secure partner. And when you have a partner who is secure and models that behavior, you have an opportunity to also become secure. Needless to say, of course, it's an opportunity. You don't have to take it. I actually turned him down 4 times because for me, before Alex, I don't think I've ever dated a secure man. I think I attracted a lot of avoidance. And for me, it was almost like too safe, too good to be true. So part of my brain identified that because like when you're used to something that's quote unquote unhealthy, to you, that's the norm.
Yeah.
And then you have somebody who comes in who is safe. You're like, this is too safe. It's not like it's not going to last. So my mind was like, this is not going to last. It's too good to be true.
How many stories and how many girlfriends do I have in my mind that are just self-sabotaging these great?
Yeah, but because again, the subconscious mind takes over. Yeah. And I have a lot of empathy because, again, I was there myself. But through awareness and having a patient partner maybe who, you know, loves you unconditionally and sees the vision, who will stay with you and still be there.
Hold space for you.
Yeah, hold space, maybe even as a friend. If you do the work soon enough, if it's meant to be, you'll come around. And that's what ended up happening in our relationship. I came around and I was like, let me give this a chance. And then I did the inner work and I became secure in my relationship with him.
Love that. I love that. That's beautiful. I asked that just so I can confirm that there is a possibility 100%. For you to actually change. Beautiful.
100%. But it takes a lot of inner work.
And a good partner. And a secure partner.
And a great secure partner who will just shower you with unconditional love.
Yeah.
And not tell you like, oh, this is wrong with you. He never told me I need to change. I was aware of that. And he always supported that growth and change, which I really appreciate.
Moment to thank Alex. So actually I have a question about your communication. So obviously that's also from the other interviews that you've done. I heard that communication really is at the core of your relationship and why it's been so great. So obviously having a conversation about, you know, separating after so many years is not an easy one. So I guess how some communication tips in general and also how to have these difficult conversations.
Yeah. I call it radical honesty. First, you start with yourself. And I think most people are not honest with themselves. So how can you be honest with other people if you're not honest with yourself? How can you have difficult conversations with others if you don't have first difficult realization and kind of like you process it? You first have to do the work yourself. And I did it first internally. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to have to face this and I'm going to have to share this with him and then everybody in my life, right? Parents, his mom, you know, everybody. So again, going back to authenticity, the only way to be authentic is to have that radical honesty. There's no other way. How do you have the difficult conversations? Stepping back into the courage, right? I mean, what else is left there? To live a fake, inauthentic life? Again, because it's against my values, it's not an option. So it's almost like I'm thrown into this. And of course you have choices, but for me, to stay in something that's inauthentic is so painful that I almost feel like there is no choice. But
yeah, because you're faking, you're forcing yourself to be someone else.
I don't think I could. Like I physically couldn't. Like it hurts to even think about it. It just, so yeah, I know it can maybe hurt him, But I actually think ultimately, if you're honest with your partner, no matter what you're saying, if you're coming from a kind place, the honesty is integrity. And the other person will respect that. If they truly love you, they will want the best for you. And that's what the conversation has been kind of revolving around when we've discussed our separation, is ultimately because our love for each other is true and authentic and unconditional. We want the best for each other. I want him to have a partner that fully chooses him and wants him. And he wants me to be happy on my journey where I feel like I want to be in a relationship 100%. And I choose it because that's how I felt every morning when I woke up. I was like, I choose you. I want to be in this relationship. Another interesting side note, Alex and I had a wedding when we first got married, and then we had a vow renewal. We were supposed to do it in 2020. That didn't happen, so in 2021. So when we renewed the vows, and even when we first got married, we never promised each other forever. Because again, we were highly aware that many people do and it doesn't last. They divorce like a year later or a few years later. So we said, we can't promise each other forever, but we'll promise each other to do our best every single day. And we're still doing our best. Even as friends now, like we still maintain that good quality friendship. You never want to burn bridges. Like who knows what will happen long term, right? But I think ultimately, if you had a true love, I also don't believe in a broken heart. Like a lot of people, you were talking about comments, when they saw our separation, they said, well, if your love didn't last, then I don't believe in love anymore. I'm like, I still believe in love because I had love for 16 years. If anything, I believe in love even more. And it's not like we don't have love. We have a lot of love and admiration for each other, but it's not romantic love at this moment.
It's just
and there's nothing
love.
I can do about it. You cannot force romantic love, right? And many people stay in a relationship without that. And I'm not going to say it's wrong to do. It's just not how I imagine, having a romantic relationship, right? Like many people stay because it's comfortable, because it's safe, because it's convenient, because it's the easiest thing to do, and live for another 40 years. And they say, we're celebrating 80 years or whatever, not 80, but 40 years together, 50 years together. But were you happy?
Yeah, what's
Did
the
you feel
quality
alive?
of those
What is
50
the
years?
Quality? I would rather have one quality year where it's like,
Yeah. You know what?
Juicy.
100%. Mimi, this is one topic that I really wanted to also share with the audience. I think it's time we normalize canceling the till death do us part. No, but let's really talk about it, okay? So if you are the kind of a person that has a growth mindset, if you evolve and change and grow,
which you
and
inevitably
upgrade
will,
yourself. I mean, some people don't, unfortunately.
Some people choose not to.
But if you are that kind of a person, where you are here today, depending on the speed of your change and your, let's say, capacity of this drive, you'll be in a completely different place even in 3 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in a year if you're going at a supersonic speed, right?
That's what's happening to me now.
So you understand. So how and why do we have this expectation that you should be together with the person for 40 or 50 years?
I love where you're going with this.
And let's unpack this. The reality is,
I think it's immaturity. Yeah,
it's purely I'm teasing it out as we speak right now, but it is only archaic old rules where marriage was supposed to be for convenience sake, for the bloodline, for the inheritance, for whatever, joining lands or whatever else it was. Today it's not the case anymore, right? So today, as you said, I think we need to normalize valuing quality over quantity. I'll say it, I said it, okay? Quantity being the 50 years of, not for everyone. Some people have the 1%, the 5%, however percent. They have the not the fairy tale, it doesn't have to be perfect, but they have this aligned, perfectly synchronized trajectory for 50 years. Bless them. Amazing. But it doesn't have to be the norm. I think we need to let go of this canon of that being the standard. I mean, clearly statistics and numbers say that is not the standard. And so why do we need to inflict this self-pain and self-torture and blame and go through all these millions of divorces and these painful journeys in order to simply go after that unrealistic, clearly, goal? Why not appreciate how beautiful life can be if you're together with someone wonderfully in an aligned trajectory for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, whatever it is. I think we need to put the emphasis on the quality of the time that you can have with the person, honor it, stay in best possible, relationship agreement and part ways and keep your journey. Like keep it growing. Keep it growing.
Keep yourself growing.
Not even keep going, keep it growing,
Keep it growing.
We should coin that.
I love that.
Keep it growing.
I think everything you said can totally sign under another side note is this idea of ownership, right? I think when we're young, and again, I'm still young, but I think like when you first start dating, and you fall in love, it's like sometimes it's egoic love. You want to own this person, like possess and control them. It comes from insecurity, right? So when you become secure in yourself, your love is secure. You don't need to own the person. So even us now, letting each other go, if
love.
That's not true love, I don't know
Amen.
what love is. It's like, I love you so much. I want the best for you. You are free. Go explore, go be yourself. If we're ever meant to be together, it will happen. And if not, it's fine because I am secure in myself. I don't need to own you. I don't need to control you. It's so beyond that, And if you do meet someone, and again, like you said, it's for that year, like enjoy it. Why you need to label it? Of course, some people want to get married, start a family. Different vision. Are you aligned? Great. But some people don't. And that's okay too. Yeah. It doesn't have to be black and white.
Yeah.
Embrace who you are, be authentic, and be honest with yourself. Again, going back to radical honesty.
And it really is about just, again, realizing that there are these boxes that we live within, and there are these messaging, these conditioning messages that we're being fed since you can remember, the Disney movies, the whatever magazines, just everything is signaling something to us. Happily ever after. So that do us part, And by the way, I'm that person. I was 100% that person that was always like, yeah, forever, gotta get married, have kids. And I'm not saying I don't want that. If, God is willing, absolutely. Like I feel like it must be one of the most beautiful experiences you can experience, but I don't want it to be at the cost of me. I don't want it to be forced. I don't want it to be a certain time because the society expects me to. And now I've come to a place in time where I'm like, well, no, it doesn't have to be forever. It just has to be right. It has to be for the time that we're meant for each other. And why is that? It's because fundamentally, how I see the world and life is what I said, right? It's all about growth and journey and understanding who you truly are, and then externalizing that, and then illuminating and inspiring, just sharing that with the other people so they in turn can get this inspiration and this illumination and then go on their journey. And as you said, it doesn't have to be about ownership. You don't have to box it in. You don't have to say, oh, this relationship is only successful if we get married or if we, stay together X amount of years. Why? Who said that? Question everything. Question everything and make your own rules.
Absolutely.
That's ultimately about the freedom, right?
So powerful.
Sorry, completely digress. There's something that I wanted to ask you ages ago, which was more about your business. So obviously, we're talking about how to create your dream life, right? So we've touched upon relationships, we've touched upon mindset, but finances are super, super important. So the businesses that you've done, what do you think is some of the kind of common denominators that have made them so successful? You always had a problem yourself, and then you wanted to find a solution for that, and then it just, took off. But why don't you tell me a little bit more about the intricacies of what you think is the success formula in your businesses?
Absolutely. I think it's a question that I get asked a lot by other people who want to start businesses, and they say, listen, I really want to be an entrepreneur. Like, what should I do? What business should I do? And I remember this so clearly. Years ago, I had a friend who just quit a corporate marketing job, and she wanted to start a business, and she came to me asking me for advice, and I said, listen, I cannot tell you what you should do because I am not you. I don't know what ticks you. I don't know what excites you, but you do. Go through your day for the next few days, a week, few weeks, and pay attention. Really observe. Anytime you catch yourself experiencing something and you have this almost resentment where you're like, oh, I wish this experience would be different. I wish this pen would be different. I wish this paper would be different. Anything. Because if we look around, everything we see has been created by someone, has been created by a business. These are all businesses, the pillow, the sofa, the frame,
table, everything.
the table, the mics we have here, right? These are all businesses created by people who saw an opportunity, ding, ding, ding. And, and business won't be easy. It will take a lot of work, right? You can enjoy it, but it's like none of it is easy, right? So choose something that really makes you interested in it, that you want to learn and go deep with it. Like you with your podcast, I'm sure naturally you enjoy having conversations.
Yeah.
You love to go deep with yourself. So you love to go deep with other people. So now maybe this is quote unquote your work, but I'm sure it doesn't feel like work because you enjoy this. So same thing, if you're really into frames and you want to, like there's something about the frames that interests you, this whole business, like you feel like, you're going to be in people's homes, they're going to have their pictures of their families. You see the value, you really care about what you do, go for it. So what is something like a business idea, that a product that you wish existed, or an experience you wish existed that is not there yet? Go and do it your way, right? And do it in the most authentic, but like in the best way you can, because that's the only way you're going to differentiate yourself from all these other frames. And, let's say if it's a frame, like how can you make it 100% recycled wood? Because there's so many others out there, but how can you be cutting edge? And right now, let's say sustainability. It's really important. Make it recycled wood, make it another material that can be recycled at the end of the life cycle. So make it better than what exists. Because obviously if you're going to go and just get another generic product, yes, you might care about makeup, but if you go create another generic mascara, I don't guarantee that you're going to be...
Yeah, what would you create if you're making something like
don't
already
create something
exists?
that already exists. Make it better, make it special, make it you, and really go deep with it. And also, consider sustainability, because I think it's a huge topic. Obviously, not something we've covered now, but our environment is our home, and we are right now destroying a lot of it. And I think we all need to be speaking more about it. So yes, you want to start a business, great, but keep that in mind, because ultimately we have the most impact when we have a business. It's like government won't change things. We actually, as businesses, can change so much more in the world that the governments can. And it's much more instant, So I feel like, does that answer your question?
Absolutely, yeah. And I love what you just said, because so often, especially these days with, so many tragic things happening around the world, you kind of feel helpless. You're like, well, what can I do? I'm a tiny little person. But you're right. Actually, you can do a lot of things. And especially as an entrepreneur, you have the potential to change, hundreds, thousands, millions of lives for the better. So I think that's also a great motivator. In terms of, again, the success in your businesses, I feel like a big part of it has been social media leverage. So that has changed, obviously, over the last 10 years drastically, since you started as well. So what would you say, from your knowledge and still being in business now, how should people starting their businesses leverage social media right now?
I think social media is super powerful even now. Of course, it can be overwhelming with all these different platforms. And if you're starting out, you might be confused, like, should I start on YouTube or Instagram? Or obviously there's TikTok now. First of all, I want to go back to just like how grateful I am for social media in the first place, because if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't be here today doing what I do. And for anyone who doesn't know my story, when we first started our first business, Alex and I, this was 2010. It was called Luxy Hair. It was clip-in hair extensions. The only marketing we used for the first probably 4 or 5 years was our YouTube videos that my sister and I used to make on our YouTube channel called Luxy Hair. If you YouTube it, it's still there. There's more than 300 hair tutorials that we had to do. She exited the business a couple of years after, so it was mostly me then because we sold the business 8 years into it. 300 videos of hair tutorials, and I'm not even a hairstylist. But anyways, how can
your hair
you leverage?
Always looks great though. So
thank you so much. Not wearing the extensions anymore, but it was fun. It's such a great accessory, right? And ultimately, again, like, how did we leverage social media? I never made videos before. I obviously had a lot of fear about putting myself out there, but I realized, I guess, desperation at the time, because we had no money. Like, Alex and I both come from very humble beginnings. And for us, there was no other way to market for free but to make the videos. We knew like there was a huge opportunity. YouTube was starting to become really popular for how-to videos. And we had this idea to start this clip-on hair extension business, because we were getting married and I bought clip-on hair extensions and the quality was horrible. I was complaining to Alex. At the time, we were thinking to start a business because we read this book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. And we were looking for the muse. So that was the moment where we were like, these are not great quality. What else is out there? Okay, there's salons with really expensive hair extensions, and then there's these crappy ones, you know, like that are, yeah, more affordable, but you cannot really wear them. They're not even human hair, for example, right? They're made out of plastic. So there's so many different options. So like, how can we, in our case, it was like bringing good quality at a really reasonable price and going like D2C. So we didn't go to salons or any retail stores. We just went straight to the customers online. Now it sounds like fine, but this was 2010. Nobody was doing this yet. So it was very revolutionary. We were one of the first YouTubers to actually sell our own products and our own brand. Yeah, so that was super cool. And if it wasn't for YouTube, we wouldn't be able to do that.
So that was your platform back then. Yeah.
YouTube, because it's how-to, because it's searchable, it's evergreen. I think now TikTok is super powerful. I personally am not on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
I am, but
yeah, it's great. I think even now there's still so much.
Let's put it that way.
It's just so addicting. And I've just, because of the anxiety in the past, I'm highly aware that if I scroll too much, it causes me to have anxiety, then can cause like stomach issues or just other like body tension. And sometimes you're like torn because, you know, it's a great opportunity. So it's tricky, but when you're starting out and you're hustling, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do, yeah.
And then you can hire somebody else to do it, you know? So definitely leverage. I believe in the power of social media. To this day, like choose one platform and go all in, unless of course you have resources to do all three platforms. But I would definitely focus on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok and virgin content for each one, because if you repurpose it, oftentimes doesn't do that well.
Interesting. This is, I always hear the contrary. People are like, repurpose everything, omnipresence.
You can, 100% you can. But from my personal experience and observation, when you create original virgin content for each platform, it will do the best. But you can only do that when, generally speaking, you'll really focus then all your attention on this strategy. Like, I'm really going to take over YouTube, and I'm going to commit to 1 year, and I'm going to post regularly, and I'm going to, now there's the, what is it called? The real version for the
shorts.
The shorts, right? Like, then, if you do the long video, then cut into shorts, post it on, and you can definitely try to repurpose it on TikTok. If you're not using TikTok and you can, why not? Just try it. But I think if you really want to grow big and differentiate yourself, if your content, the same content everywhere, is just overwhelming I think, for people. I personally wouldn't want to follow somebody and have the same content everywhere. Like, I want to see new and original content on different platforms. So I'm always hyper aware how I, as a consumer, would want to also like absorb somebody's concept or
Fair. Thank you. And you mentioned a few times in other interviews, and also obviously we said it today, that, you know, you're going through this metamorphosis right now. And I quote you, you said, I only feel like I'm scratching the surface. What is the ultimate vision for you then?
Gosh, what is the ultimate vision? I mean, I don't think I even know the ultimate vision, but I can feel the potential is like huge. And I mean, I had a few astrological reading and then this Akasha reading by a friend who is an intuition coach, actually. Nikki, she's coming to the summit this year. You'll meet her. All new concepts, but they all kind of say the same thing. It's like you're a light worker. And I feel like it resonates again. It's like you can believe and not believe all these readings and things you do. But I feel like I need to be more out there, like with the people, kind of like leading by example. I don't know exactly the whole thing, but I just know that I love public speaking. So I've been called almost to like get outside of my bubble, because I've been for many years obviously doing a virtual online business, you in front of the screen, and that's not where I shine. Before that, I worked as a server in a restaurant, in many different restaurants. And then I worked at a bank, also serving people. And I loved serving jobs. Like, I need to be out there with people. And you saw me at Intelligent Change Summit. That's where we met. That was the happiest 3 days of my life, because I was on the ground with people. And that experience also reminded me that, like, this is what makes me feel alive. Physical contact with other humans, doing something that, or like sharing a message that resonates, like growing together as a collective. So I need to do more of that. How is that going to take shape? I'm still figuring it out, but I need to be out there with people. I need to be out of my bubble, facing my fears and speaking more, getting my voice out and being more on stage.
I love that. I love that. Resonates a lot. And honestly, the summit was amazing.
Thank you.
Everyone that I tell it to, I'm like, this was the best thing that happened to me that year. Is just such an inspiring environment. And I met so many people. It's just like a domino effect. Stunning. And you created that space together with Alex. So, thank you guys. Thank you, really. Just before we wrap up, as this is a lot about, mindset and purpose, I would like to ask you, what are some of the mindset qualities that you have and you've developed over the years that you think have served you most?
You mentioned growth mindset before. I'm aware that you're aware, but for anyone who's listening who is not aware, it's like the fixed versus the growth mindset. And I also read a really great book on this, not necessarily on growth mindset and fixed mindset, but it's this called Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, I believe. So in order not to self-sabotage and go beyond our conditioning and self-limiting beliefs, we need to make this big leap, whether it is you wanting to have financial freedom or be in a healthy, secure relationship. If you've never experienced safe love, how do you get to safe love? If you've never experienced financial freedom, how do you leap into this complete new world, right? Most people struggle and they never make it there. So it's like you have to make a mental leap. There's a process, and that process, of course, starts with awareness. And oftentimes it's about you catching yourself before you self-sabotage. Because most people, we do all the inner work, we grow, we're almost there, and then it takes over. Because it's like self-protection. The new place doesn't feel safe yet because we've never been there.
Because it's unknown, yeah.
And the mind is trying to protect us. So it's about catching yourself before you self-sabotage and changing the course. It's a lot of inner work where you'll have to be aware of, again, those thoughts and patterns that you probably have done for your whole life. It's like when things go well, most people self-sabotage. They cheat, right? They do something that will ruin everything, ultimately. And then they start the same pattern all over again. They'll get in the new relationship and they'll do it all over again. Or they do that with their job, or they do it with the business. Or I have a lot of friends who are super talented and they write a book but never publish it. Or they create the products but never post them to actually sell them. And I'm like, listen, but you've done the hard work. Just post it, just sell it.
Yeah.
And it's and that's when you self-sabotage because you haven't made the mental leap. So read the book Big Leap. I think for me was one of the most life-changing books that I've read. But at that time when I read the book, I realized I've already made the leap. Because, for example, I didn't grow up with money. So for me to make the leap, to have the financial freedom, was that I was the first generation who has done that in my line.
And that's a big burden. That's a big responsibility. Yeah.
Huge. So I'm super grateful. How did I do that? I did a lot of inner work. For me, Tony Robbins' work really helped a lot. I remember spending hours and hours. I did his program called Get the Edge. It's like a 10-day program. And actually, it's not a 10-day program because it's so intense. You end up doing it for a month. But life-changing. Yeah. For sure. For me, I did it multiple times. So again, sitting down, identifying your desires, identifying your values, the vision, all of that. It's a process, and if you don't do it, you're just going to go on this autopilot of going somewhere where it's not really even
someone else's directions.
It's not, you will be that old person with lots of unhappy emotions stuck on your face because you've self-abandoned. You didn't live an authentic life. And that's an opportunity we all have. And that's okay. If that's the path you choose and you're okay with that, that's fine. You got to be honest with yourself. Some people choose to stay safe and comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that. We also shouldn't judge their path. There's no right or wrong. Life is not black and white, Maybe it's not in this lifetime. Who knows? What do we know? All I know is that I know nothing. That's one of my favorite quotes. All I know, and the more I know that I know nothing because I'm constantly learning, and I love that about life.
That's so true. That's so true. And the way you were speaking, you just reminded me of these moments. I have these moments every now and then of this intense love towards people when, I don't know, I'll go through the train station or something or on a crowded street and I just see these people. And, this is the reason why I do coaching, because what I feel in those moments, I just look at them and what I see is this incredible potential, this innate power that each and one of us has. And it's just dormant in 9 out of 10 cases. And these people, they're just, rushing about their life, about the routine. And so few of them actually realize how powerful they are, how beautiful this world is, how incredible their life could be if they just realized and acknowledged how much potential and power and genius each one of them have.
But the subconscious mind overtakes, right? The 0 to 7 creates your inner dialogue, and then you live by that. And it makes 95% of all decisions are made based on the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So if we don't make subconscious conscious,
it's a journey.
We'll stay stuck.
It's a journey. But I think something for the audience really to take away is that wherever you are, it doesn't have to stay that way. Literally wherever you are. And let's go back to what you said earlier in this conversation. Not everyone is blessed with this complete freedom. Some people really have it really rough and really tough. But you always have a choice. Like the most horrific, horrible, horrendous scenario of all, there is still a choice. And that is of that internal space. And as we established in this conversation, it is from that within internal space that you have 100% control of, that everything else, your life experience, will come out of. So actually, you have a choice and you are very powerful and you have very big say in where your life is going to go next and even your immediate life experience. So power is in your hands, guys.
Absolutely. And I can finish with my favorite quote by Marianne Williamson. Have you read any of her books?
I haven't. I've done a mini course of hers.
Oh, amazing. Good for you. I'm reading now Return to Love, but I've heard of this quote many years ago and it just resonated with me, and whenever I read it just like brings me to tears. But it's our biggest fear is not that we're inadequate, our biggest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that scares us the most. Believe in your life and bring it out because the world needs it. We all need it because when one person turns it on, it shifts the collective.
You do matter.
Did we really just say that?
We did.
Oh my God. Synchronized.
Literally.
I love it. That's so beautiful. That's
Mimi, thank you so much.
Hello friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with someone. I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions as to what guests you would like to see on the show next. See you next week.